We are back today. We've got a lot of really fun stuff that we're going to talk about, and of course, we're going to be playing Viva Pinata. So, Landon, say hi.
Hi guys, how you guys doing? I am coming to you from the omniscient voice in the background. Uh, and for some reason, it's not wanting to show up on Twitch for me. So once again, there we go.
Okay. Yeah, I tried to do some things to change that delay for you, Landon, but I was only so successful. So there should be less delay now, but I think a delay is still going to exist.
Hey, you know what? I'll take it.
All right.
It'll just be interesting.
So let's get started in the game. So no, we don't want to do that. So to let you guys know, just to try to kind of progress a little bit so that we can start making additional gardens and things like that, one of the things that I am going to do is try to attract some of the pinatas that are like the highest level that I can get at this point. So that's what you're gonna kind of see me doing in the game, kind of as Landon and I chat today. So
Woo.
FYI, that's how it's gonna go.
And I think we should also let the people who are going to be watching the stream know that we are actually going to be recording this and turning it into a podcast.
Yes.
And so that their questions will be a part of that and conversation will be a part of that. And if we're a little bit more formal or over explaining things that we've already talked about since we started the streaming, it's basically because we need to let the people who are listening to the audio version of this catch up.
Yep. So we're going to do kind of an episode today that 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I gotta buy 10 of those. So it's a little bit more about kind of like some background information for those of you guys that don't know us, for anybody that wants to kind of engage with that audio version, so they'll have a lot of that background information.
Yes. And if you are listening to the audio version, then feel free to join us on stream. We stream every Saturday from noon to 2 on Twitch.
That's right.
Woohoo. All right. So you kind of hinted that our weekly topic this week is kind of the origin of our RPing, how we met each other, how we found the hobby, as well as the mistakes that we've made over the years, because I think it's really important to talk about the mistakes that you make in a hobby or in such a community group activity.
Yes, for sure. I mean, I didn't come out the womb knowing everything there is to know about roleplay, and I still don't know everything there is to know about roleplay. So there was absolutely a lot of mistakes that we made along the way. So I want to talk about a lot of that stuff and kind of how we got to where we are now.
Yeah, I don't know what you were talking about. I was perfect. First thing out of the womb. Just knew how to do everything, including spell.
Amazing.
But before we get into that, let's talk about our favorite things for this week. Karen, do you have a favorite thing that happened?
I do. Oh my gosh. Okay, so favorite thing this week. I don't know if you have watched this show before, but we watched the latest season of Nailed It this week, and oh my god, I love this show so much.
Okay, so I have terrible secondhand embarrassment. So it took me so long to watch the show because I originally thought it was just like people who were really trying really hard then being made fun of. And then I realized that like, no, the people who are trying are also making fun of themselves.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit better.
Yeah, no, it's not like that. It's not like that at all. Although I do feel like, okay, so if you've watched it, so have you watched the latest season?
Possibly, but you'll have to remind me.
Okay, so this is the season. It has like, I think it has like a wedding episode, or I don't remember. Like they all kind of run together, right? But I do think that, like, you know, Jacques, the French guy who's always there giving tips and things like that, I do feel like in this season he has gotten a little bit more like strict about the tips that he gives. Like to me, it doesn't come off as nice as he used to. I don't know. Hey Naomi, how's it going? I don't, and maybe it's like in my head, right? But I do feel like he's gotten a little bit more strict in like what he expects from the contestants, which is a little bit weird.
Unfortunate because they're people who don't know how to cook. Like that's the whole point, or bake.
Yeah, they have no idea what they're doing.
So like I don't know. I don't like that. That's a little maybe a little too much on the judgy as that. If it's just going to be a fun little TV show, then everyone should be having fun. But Naomi still hasn't found the pizza yet.
Oh shoot!
Naomi is a wonderful dear friend that will probably appear in both of our stories as we talk about our origins.
Mm-hmm.
And her eldest son or eldest child hid part of his pizza this morning. And so still trying to find it. So thank you for keeping us updated.
It's been wonderful entertainment all morning, seriously.
Is this adulting? Is when we're talking about when a child hides pizza?
Yes, this is adulting. And then you have to find that pizza so that the other child doesn't eat like old pizza that's going to upset their stomach.
Naomi is so wonderful at just making parenthood sound like the best thing ever,
or the worst thing ever, if or you know if you're not interested. But we love Naomi's kids; they're wonderful.
Yes. Okay, so
what's your favorite thing? Yeah. Oh, sorry. Oh, go ahead. Yeah, we can talk more about Nailed It. Go for it.
Oh yeah, no, I was just gonna say, so that is your favorite thing, that you were able to watch it and enjoy and see some wonderful, terrible desserts.
Yes, I mean, it's very contrived, right? So for those of you that are watching that have not seen this show, it's essentially they make these like really, really complicated, fancy cakes and other desserts, and when they're doing this, they give them like a time limit. So these are like amateur home bakers, right? And they give them this time limit of like, 20 minutes. Dang it, I forgot to press the right button. They give them this like 20 minute, 30 minute, or like maybe an hour or 2 hours if it's more complicated. But essentially what happens is, because they're amateur bakers given this impossible time limit, they can't make the thing that they're being asked to make, right? So they end up with like just this awful freaking version of whatever cake it was. Like it'll be some kind of like lumpy, ugly monstrosity. But the hope is that it still tastes like cake and it's still, edible, which sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. They always forget to grease their pans on this show. They are always forgetting to grease their cake pans on this show. I swear to God. And every episode, at least somebody forgets that. So you hope that the cake still tastes good, and there's like a $10,000 prize at the end. But that's essentially the structure of the show. And it's run by this comedian, Nicole Byers, who is hilarious. Yeah. She's so funny. Like, okay, I have a strong affiliation, I have a strong interest in annoying things, and she is perhaps one of the most annoying people I've ever seen on TV, and that is why I love her. Like, she just makes like the weirdest noises and the funniest faces and says the craziest shit, and that's why she's the best, and we stan and we love her,
and we just love her.
That's right.
No, I've definitely seen her, and she is the most entertaining part of the show, and she's just so on point with her comedy that I really appreciate it. So I'm glad that there is some more love for her in the world.
Yep, I love her. I love her so much. So that's my favorite thing this week, is watching the latest season of Nailed It. Yeah, done.
So my favorite thing is a little thing came out not last Friday, so the 3rd. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's called Hamilton.
Oh, wow. I was not expecting this.
Only a few people have really ever heard about it.
It's so indie. I can't believe.
Yeah, it's just like really undercover and really just underground stuff right now. But Hamilton and the magnificent story character arc that is Aaron Burr. And I just have been obsessed. I have been obsessed with Hamilton probably since 2016, 17.
Oh wow.
It was on Broadway. It hadn't started touring yet, so I want to say that's probably 16, 17.
So pretty much since it started, you were into this.
Yeah, not to sound like a hipster, but
oh wow, but you do.
But I liked it before it was cool to like it. But yeah, so I loved it, loved the sound, loved the music, constantly listened to it. I can just probably sing all of the songs I gladly would for anyone who would be willing to listen, but I'm not going to do it on here. But hit me up.
I mean, you can if you want to. Like, what's the most confident line that you have? Like, there's probably like a line, right, that you're super confident in singing. Or why don't we get like a little?
So none of them.
None of them. Not a single one. I don't believe you.
Oh, like here, I imagine death so much that it feels more like a memory. When's it gonna get me? On my feet ahead of me. That's what I got for you.
Okay, well, never mind.
But anyway,
we tried.
We tried. But it came out on Disney Plus, or I guess so I had seen it, not in Broadway. I live in Maine. My parents live in Colorado. I actually flew out to Colorado for the weekend because my mother had a ticket for me. So that's how dedicated I am.
Wow.
To seeing it, that I was like, no, I will be there to see it.
That's a nice gift.
Family, but I will see this play. So I was able to see it when it was on tour, very fortunately. And then the fact that it came to Disney Plus, I just had a party and cried the whole time. And by party, I mean there was like 2 of us who were basically quarantining together anyway. And she had never heard the music. Just watching this musical as I'm sobbing next to her, being like, it's just so good. So that's where I'm at.
That's such a nice experience, being able to share something that you're really into with a friend, and so that's like so nice. That's like so nice.
It's a great experience. I think if you care about something in the right ratio.
Oh yeah.
So you have to care about it at least a little. And you can't care about it too much, because then you enjoy the process of like sharing it with a friend. I cared about this too much, so I was literally looking over at Sam and just being like, isn't this song amazing? And she's like, what are you talking about? It just started.
She didn't know. She didn't
understand.
So I mean, I like Hamilton. I'm not like super into it as a lot of people are, but I think it's pretty good as far as musicals go. I mean, I like a lot of musicals, and it was, it's quite different and innovative, I feel like, in a lot of the way that it does things, since there's a lot of rap in it and things like that, and you often don't get that style of music in a musical. So in that way, I really like it, but it's not, I don't know, it's not really my cup of tea, I guess. Founding Fathers is not really my cup of tea.
Did you attempt to watch it? Because I think that if you watched it, you'd enjoy it.
Well, I mean, I'm sure you think that, right? So what I have seen is, of course, I listened to it when the soundtrack came out because everyone was freaking into it, so I had to, right? And then later on, I watched a bootleg version of it, which is pretty good. I mean, but it's got some of the problems that bootlegs tend to have, in that it's just someone in the audience filming it. I don't know if you've watched any of these like Broadway bootlegs before, but and it's
illegal. Yep.
Yeah, and they're kind of a challenge. But so I don't have Disney Plus. So I have not watched it on Disney Plus, but yeah, that's how I have watched Hamilton.
Which is totally fine. If you like watched a bootlegged version and you were like, actually, this isn't my cup of tea, then you watch the play.
That's true.
I understand that. But
That's
for
true.
me, I'm just like, but Aaron Burr. How can you not just be in love with Aaron Burr?
It's so funny.
It's really awkward to talk about because he is definitely a murderer and a real person.
That's so funny to me. That's so funny to me that people are so into Hamilton, and I feel like sometimes when I see like Hamilton fandom things online, I almost feel like these people are forgetting that these were actually real people that lived at one point in time, and the reality is they did some absolutely heinous things.
Oh yeah, no, the Founding Fathers, not good people.
No.
Do not support them. Do not support anything. But Daveed Diggs, when he comes out as Jefferson, I'm just like, oh, swoon. But I would never look at Jefferson and be like, swoon. It's literally Daveed Diggs.
I mean, fair, absolutely fair. But it's so funny, like the mythologizing and the like way that these people like have become characters and not people anymore. Like I find that element of Hamilton very fascinating, more so than Hamilton itself, if I'm being honest.
Actually, that is an incredibly good point, because something is happening, I want to say very similarly. It's not my history, so maybe, I don't know, it's not that big of a musical yet, but have you heard of Six, the musical?
No. What is that?
So it's a rock musical featuring the 6 wives of Henry VIII.
Oh.
And
Okay.
it's fantastic. It's up there, upbeat rock. It's not so much a story, because it takes place as a rock concert,
Mm.
and then this group of women are a part of that concert.
Okay.
So it's a really interesting take on it. But again, it makes these women characters versus actual living people and part of history. Like it's interesting the way that we can take history and make it a story.
Yeah.
And because of that, we change the facts of a lot of things too. Like Hamilton is not historically accurate, but
Oh
people
no.
treat it as such.
Yeah, it's
And
just a
Six is the
story.
same way.
Yeah, it's a story. It's a mythologized version. Absolutely. I think that's true.
Naomi said that she started watching it. So Naomi, you need to tell me in the chat how you have liked it so far. Just by the way.
Yeah. What do you think? Like, what do you think of it? Um, interested to know. Uh, other thoughts on either Hamilton or Nailed It?
Yeah. I think that it's just, I think the way media portrays story arcs too, like Nailed It is obviously a reality TV show, so there isn't as much ability to create a character, but there
Mm-hmm.
is the idea of like with reality TV, nothing is reality. So you're taking something that is based in reality and switching it to so that there is a character or a story arc within each episode. So like
Yeah.
you fall in love with the person who just wants to, buy mom and dad a house or something like that, and you follow his story arc as he's winning this competition.
Yeah, and
um
there 100% is story arcs in Nailed It. Like, even though these are real people, like, there are absolutely story arcs. Like, there are, there's the person that's, like, not going to follow directions, and that's, fun to watch in that sense. And then there's the character that's there that really needs the money for some reason. And then, like, there is 100%, there is story arcs. There's absolutely story arcs in Nailed It, despite the fact that it's real people. Just like any good reality TV, like, you'll notice there's characters and there's things that they edit to make it look like a certain thing happened, even though the reality of probably what happened is more complicated than that.
well, and the same thing, and you can sit there and apply that same logic as happening to Hamilton.
Oh, yeah.
That it is taking real people and making and real facts and real history and making characters out of it. And it's just
Yeah.
fascinating that is where we have gone with American media,
Oh, yeah.
that we want to now focus on the realism aspect, but not actually have it be real.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's true of a lot of what's popular right now, for sure.
So I just find it fascinating.
Yeah, it's definitely it's funny. It's funny that we both picked sort of like reality-ish things this week. That was not intentional. We didn't tell each other before we started. We didn't tell each other before we started what was going what we were going to pick for favorite things this week. Oh my gosh.
Also, I mean, if we wanted to, we don't have to go on this tangent, but we could relate it to the like state of the world of wanting to find some comfort and sense in reality and a story outside of ourselves, but that is real. So like it's escapism, but it's not too much escapism, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think that does make a lot of sense. And I think that that escapism, that kind of relates a lot to role playing, kind of like what we're doing and all that stuff. And that's kind of what we want to really talk about today, is kind of give you guys some background about like us as role players and how we met and kind of how we came into this hobby. So, oh, nope, go away. Sorry, the thing, he's in my garden. Oops, he probably left something. I just find the sour candy somewhere. So yeah, Landon, why don't you kind of start us off there? What do we want to kind of go through first? Just like history or?
Well, how did you find role playing? Like,
Okay.
How did you start?
So I started in probably the most problematic way humanly possible. I was very, very young, like 11, 12 years old, something like that. And when I was that age, the internet was a very different place, like a very different place. Those that are a bit younger, it's probably even a little bit hard to imagine, but there was no such thing as like social media, right? Anonymity online was considered the norm. Like it was very much like that's what everyone did, right? There was really no such thing as doxing. There was no such thing as like people knowing your real name. Like we assumed everyone was using pseudonyms online, and that's what you were expected to do. So I started role playing mostly in Yahoo chat rooms, which, if anybody was online in the late 90s, early 2000s, you guys probably remember Yahoo chat rooms, and some very specific Yahoo chat rooms that we're not going to name because we're a mostly, family friendly PG-13 show here, and that would not be a PG-13 thing to talk about. But that's where I was, and that's what I was doing. Is I was doing a lot of role play in Yahoo chat rooms. Some kind of aside from that, I was doing some in AOL chat rooms as well, doing some on forums as well, stuff like that. And it really was just a chance for me to go online and play pretend, play pretend as a teenager, which that's not, by the time you get that age, that's not really something that you're doing with your real life friends anymore. So when I found these Yahoo chat room role plays and I realized that's what people were doing, I was like, shit, I want to do that. Like, that's amazing. So I just kind of dove in, right? And because things were like very open in a chat room, and because there was no like social media that, no one could trace back who you were. So I essentially was literally just like going into these chat rooms every evening and every weekend, and just like sometimes I would make like a whole new character on the spot, right? And you would do like an intro post, and then you would basically, what you would try to do is impress people with your intro posts or with your public role playing so that they would DM you and want to do a private role play with you. Like, that's basically how it worked. So that's what I was doing. And I did that for a really long time, until I came across a particular role player that I still remember to this day. I don't know if the person behind it was a he or a she, because at that time, like, everything was anonymous, right? Like, you didn't ask, you didn't care, So anyway, but their character's name was Jimmy James Johnson. I still remember this person to this day. So if you're out there, hey, I remember you. I role played with you back in Yahoo chat days, and so this person, like, they were so good. They had this fleshed out character. They had like a character arc that he went through. They had all these unique traits for this character. Like, it felt like a character in a book. And I was, oh no, this is another evil, Dastardus, this is another evil guy that comes up in this game. He will literally make your pinata sick. We can kind of get rid of him later, so hopefully we'll be able to do that soon. Yeah, so hopefully he won't bother us too much, but we'll see. So yeah, so this person impressed me so much that I realized, like, there was more to this, right? Like, it kind of dawned on me that there was a bit more to this than just like playing silly pretend, right? Hey Marina, how's it going? We're just kind of hanging out, chatting. You really haven't missed anything yet. Oh, you missed his favorite things. So yeah, so I met this particular role player. I was incredibly impressed with them, and I was like, I want to do what they're doing. I want to do what they're doing. And I started like thinking about myself as like a writer, right? As a writer that actually, dang it, I keep hitting the invisible ones. Okay. I started thinking of myself as a writer who like had characters with goals and with feelings and with like emotions and arcs that I wanted them to go on. But the way that roleplay was structured in chat rooms is you would essentially do like, one roleplay, and then things sometimes continue the next day, but a lot of times they just reset the next day, and not everyone was online all the time. It was very, very like loosey-goosey, right? So at that point, when I realized that that's really what I wanted to do, I started role-playing on forums, right? And role-playing on forums kind of messed me up a little bit, because I don't know if anybody has ever really done any of you guys have ever done a lot of forum roleplay, but the norm in forum roleplay is to write incredibly long, detailed posts.
Yeah.
And that's where you start to get that purple prose and all of that stuff. And so I got my mind really destroyed about how to be a good writer with that. And it took me a long time to work out of that sort of thing. But eventually I did, and I moved on to more like social media style role play. And that's when I really started role playing a lot on like LiveJournal and Gaia Online. And then years later, I ended up moving on to Tumblr role play. And it sort of, progressed from there. But that's how I got into it. How I got into it was largely Yahoo chat rooms. And then later on, it was forums. And that was really my introduction to the role play scene. So yeah, that's that's my backstory, I guess. Hey Eric, how's it going? I hope you're having a good time here. So yeah, so that's my story. Landon, why don't you tell us like how you got into role playing and how you got started?
Okay, so I had always been a fan fictioner. As soon as I found, like, I don't even know how I found it, but I found the internet and then I found fan fiction. So I knew that the idea of fan fiction existed and that there was a world beyond already created worlds that I loved. So that really interested me, and I was already writing. Like, I had been writing when I started writing. It was fan fiction. I remember that I had my dad had just finished the 4th Harry Potter book. He was reading out loud to me because I was very, very young, and he shut the book, and I remember looking at him going, "Okay, so you're gonna go get the 5th one tomorrow," and he was like, "I'm so sorry, honey. J.K. Rowling hasn't written it yet."
Oh no!
And I was like, "Well, she's taking too long. I'm gonna write it myself." And then I did, and that's how I started writing.
Oh my god, that is too cute. That is too cute. Baby Landon thinks that she's gonna write the next book in the series.
I, in fact, did. Harry got picked up in a limo by Dumbledore.
Fabulous.
Dumbledore had a secret daughter. It might have been a self-insert. It was fine.
I love it. That's great.
What?
I said I love it. That's great.
So I had always, that was the world, and that was how I knew to write. I wasn't creating my own stories. I wasn't even creating my own characters. I was playing characters I knew and loved, and then continuing to read fiction about them and continuing to write fiction about them. So enter my wonderful friend in freshman year, who introduced me to the concept of role-playing. And this was paper and pen role-playing. So we had a notebook that like a spiral notebook. It was purple, and we would pass it back and forth between classes to one another.
Oh my gosh. Old school.
And yeah, no, so old school. And I was writing as Bella, and she was writing Edward.
Oh wow.
And I'm so embarrassed by that. But
hey, that was the times though. That was the times.
That was the times. Yeah. To be fair, that is very on par for my age group at that point in time. But we were writing back and forth that way, and she had a group of friends that I was acquaintances with that were juniors and seniors, and they had started a Harry Potter forum RP for the Marauders era. And Dee, who was my friend, invited me into talking about that. And so I then became a group of friends with all of these like upperclassmen who had already taken roles like James and Sirius and Lily and all of the already known characters. So that all that was left was this idea that I could create my own character. And that was really the first time that I ever considered doing that. And so I did, and it was cringy, and it was a self-insert because that's all I really knew how to write. I had spent my time writing other people's characters that I didn't even know how to start beginning with my own character.
Oh, girl, yeah. I mean, what I didn't say is that in all the Yahoo chat room role plays, they were various levels of self-insert, all the way until I met that one role player that was actually good. You know what I mean? I didn't know any different.
Yeah, and I think like also at that age, it's really, really hard to. I think that if you're writing at that age, you are writing self-inserts because how are you supposed to conceptualize a world that you don't know?
Yeah,
writers do an extraordinary amount of research on both characters and different ways of the world in order to make a realistic character.
Yeah, and some 11-year-old don't know how to do research, you know?
Yeah. You don't know how to do research, and you certainly don't know any other life than the life that you're currently living. Like the concept that the universe does not revolve around you is not something that you learn until probably you're 16, 17, and even then it's really hard to believe.
Yeah. It is.
In fact, as a 26-year-old, I'm still pretty sure that I am the center of the universe.
Oh my gosh! Thank you, Eric. Thank you. Thank you for sharing it on the nerd. It's nerd something. What is that server called? It's one of our partners, the Nerdarium or something like that. Anyway, thank you so much for sharing. We'd love to have some more people in here. Nerdalius. Yes, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. By the way, yes. Oh yeah, Pickles. That's right. You go by Pickles on there. If you guys, just to let you guys know, Pickles, in case any of your people ask you, we are also happy to, during this stream, take role play questions if people want to like actually come on and like voice talk to us about any sort of role play questions or concerns that they have. Just reach out to Landon on Discord if you want to do that. Okay, I'm so sorry for interrupting, Landon, to handle the chat, but you're good. Okay, so keep going.
You're totally fine. The waiting fans are way more important than this.
Of course.
So, anyway, I started RPing, and it was a forum RP. So it was long prose. I was very fortunate that this particular one did not have a word minimum, but it certainly was expected that you had a long form, several paragraph responses.
Mm-hmm. I feel like that was so in fashion during that time. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think that it was either really, if you wanted to have a long-term story, you had to be a lot of purple prose, lots of kind of unimportant fluff. It just was ridiculous that I look back on it and I go, God, 3 paragraphs for literally a line of dialogue is so much.
But you had to at that time. That was how everyone did it, and you had to conform to that, otherwise you weren't going to role play, you know?
Yeah, exactly. So, that's how I started. And then from there, I met my friend Michaela, and whom you've written with.
Yep.
And we started writing together as partners. And as she discovered more ways, or as Forum transformed into Tumblr, although the style was very similar, I then realized that there was a area in a social media where there was a easy way to find a bunch of different RPs, especially as a lot of people grew out of the idea of doing Harry Potter, and I didn't want to. So I kept kind of my eye open for those, looking at those. I followed Michaela as to where she went and what she was writing, and that's how I kind of ended up doing Tumblr for a long time, which is where we met.
Yes. Yeah, so I think that's a good segue into where we met. So essentially, I don't want to. Yeah, it's Viva Pinata. Hell yeah, this game's awesome. So that's how we met, essentially, is on Tumblr roleplay. Now, it wasn't in a Harry Potter roleplay. We will address the Harry Potter, a turf-shaped elephant in the room in just a little bit. So don't worry, we're gonna get there. But kind of before that, I just wanna go into some of the details of how we actually met. So when we first met, I had joined this Once Upon a Time roleplay. So this is something where, like, I was really into the show. I was following a lot of people that were posting about it on Tumblr, and I saw somebody that was running this role play advertise that they were running it. So I was like, oh shoot, I'll join that. I like your blog, and so I'll join your role play. Now, I don't want to get too into, who all was in that role play and everything that went down there, because to me, role play is kind of, it is in a lot of ways a kind of private, intimate thing, right? So I don't want to air anything that people don't want to be known. But so some of the background of it is I joined this role play, and just like any group, there was people in there I really liked, and there was people in there I really didn't. Right? And Landon was one of the people that I really liked. So even when that Once Upon a Time role play slowly started falling apart due to various things that were going on in that role play, and Landon was one of the mods there. So I don't know if you want to end up talking about some of that in a little while. You can bring it back up if you want to. So then what would essentially happen is during while that role play was started falling apart, another girl that was in that role play with us created a Harry Potter role play. It was a Marauders era role play, and it was like, hell yeah, let's go join that.
I completely forgot that you did not start it.
I did not start it. I did not
else.
start it. I did not start it. This other girl started it. I created a bunch of graphics for her, so I had access to the main account for this role play. And she disappeared. And when she disappeared, all of a sudden, I had a role play just fall in my lap. Now, I had sort of run role plays before, but I had never been like, yes, he joined. We're going to get a lot of experience for him. Okay. So I had never really run a role play before. Like, I mean, I had, but I had never been like the one really responsible for it. So I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I just knew that I didn't want this role play to die just because the main mod disappeared. You know what I mean? So
well, I think like it's important to say that we already had people joined.
Yeah.
Already, like there were already people.
There was like
characters.
There was like 11 or 12 people in there when she disappeared.
Yeah. Didn't she just like go on vacation and then just never came back?
Yeah. Like she took a hiatus and never came back from her hiatus.
And then with Tumblr, I think it's also very important to say that like you have it's not like Discord where you have a server and then you can like assign mods and stuff like that. You had an account dedicated to that to that RP, and so like trying to get access to that and switch over stuff too.
It was crazy.
You had the passwords, but it just was kind of this insane moment where we were all looking forward to it and plotting, and then the person just never came back.
Yeah, like we had for like 2 weeks. We gave her like 2 weeks to come back, and she never did. Like we made people wait to create characters. We made people wait to start plots because we just thought she was coming back, and then she never did. So then we just kind of like took it over, and I was the only one with access, and then I was like, guys, I cannot do this by myself. I cannot do this by myself. What the fuck am I doing? And so then, here's our next sour. I've already got stuff out for him, so he'll join up. He's all good. So I was like, oh my God, what am I doing? And then I messaged you and also Shadow.
Yep.
And I was like, because you guys are basically my closest friends there. I didn't really know at that time if you knew how to run a role play. I was just like grasping at straws and hoping and praying, and thank God it worked out, and y'all were awesome. And no, there was not more than 4 seasons of Once Upon a Time, Marina. There was only 4, and then it just miraculously and mysteriously ended.
It's so funny how many shows do that these days.
It's, I know, crazy. You would never expect. So yeah, I asked y'all to help me. I gave you the passwords, and we set it all up. And we just kind of took over. Like we changed the plot. We changed a bunch of her stuff so that it was really like more like our creation instead of her creation. Because like we were just like, well, she's not coming back. She's not coming back.
Naomi.
Yeah, Naomi. Yeah, it was LOOH. Love Our Only Hope on Tumblr. It was freaking awesome. And then at that point, basically, you and I created a ship together, right? So you had your character, and you were like, I need a girlfriend for this character, and I want to do this plot. And I was like, ooh, that sounds problematic and beautiful, and I would love to do that. And
that
so
one time that I peer pressured you.
You did.
To a serial killer and victim ship.
Oh my God! But you were speaking my language. You didn't even know it, but you were.
And here we are 7 years later, still doing it.
Yeah, and so we still play the same character, same characters. We just keep re-rolling them in new role plays, and at this point, they're like. There are OCs, like they're not what was originally created for that role play. Like they're their own things. So yeah, that's essentially how we met. Is we role played in that Harry Potter role play together, and we just kind of never stopped. I mean, that's not entirely true, right? Like there's definitely times that we've taken breaks. There was a time that, we even weren't getting along for a period, but in general, we haven't really stopped role playing for like 7 years, which is just crazy.
Yeah. No, that was a very, very interesting time.
Yes.
Full of mistakes and missteps and interesting learning curves.
Oh yeah.
And it's impressive that we got over it and were able to do it. And then that roleplay lasted, what, 2 years?
Yeah, it was 2 years. We had that role play last for 2 years, and to me, a role play that lasts longer than a year is a success because
Yeah.
before I met you guys and started role playing with y'all and like really kind of got my shit together as far as like how to run a role play, I had never even been in a role play that lasted longer than 6 months. I didn't think that was a thing. I thought role plays always died super fast, and that was just how it was. That was just how it was. But, thank you, Marina. I hope so. I mean, I hope I do a good job now, right, after all the learning that I've done. But yeah, essentially, like, pretty much after that role play, it's kind of been like very slowly, like a slow process of improving since there. I mean, there's absolutely mistakes, and I know there's one that I want to talk about later that we can get into. But that's kind of how it all started and how I really got into running role plays.
Yeah. A wonderful, wonderful mistake that had positive consequences.
It did. It really did.
Before we start talking about the mistakes we made, because I like to push that stuff off as far as we can.
That is what I advertise this as, right? Like, this is what I advertise this as.
Oh, yeah. Let's very quickly talk about the mistakes other people have made.
Okay.
By going back to that TERF-shaped elephant.
Yes, we do need to address that because I do understand we're talking about Harry Potter, and we met with Harry Potter, and obviously, like, I'm wearing one of my Harry Potter shirts today, and so, like, I'm not shy about hiding my involvement in that fandom and what it means to me. I do think for you, Landon, if you kind of want to start on this, because I think like you have probably an even deeper connection to that particular fandom than I do. So I'll let you take the floor first.
Yeah, I mean, J.K. It's so convenient at the moment that it turns out that Harry Potter was written by Oprah Winfrey.
Yeah, I mean, with Hatsune Miku as the collaborating author, we can only be so grateful.
Yeah, I'm really appreciative that that's coming out now.
Yeah.
No, Harry Potter has, I mean, before I had this, I have a Harry Potter podcast. Like, Harry Potter is a huge part of who I am, how I identify in my life, and I am. It would be very rare for me to be in a conversation with someone and it not be brought up at least once. So the fact that all of this is happening is extremely disappointing and extremely it's so hard to talk about it because I am part of the LGBTQ. I can say the acronym, I promise. I am part of the LGBTQ community, but I am not trans. And so it's very hard to talk about it and recognize that I am not the hurt party here. But I feel incredibly disappointed and incredibly hurt by J.K. Rowling being such a piece of shit.
Yeah, I mean, she really has. She really has proven essentially that like all of that subtext in her books that kind of like when I was growing up, either I didn't notice it or I thought it was just like, oh, these are tropes of the genre and so it's whatever. Those are the kinds of things I was thinking. But it turns out this is actually what she believes, and it is so heartbreaking to see something that really created a lot of friendships in my life and really improved my life, in a very material, direct way. It turns out that J.K. Rowling actually hates a lot of the people that I love, and that's real, and she really, truly does. She didn't just make a mistake. She really does hate trans people, and I can't... I kind of really struggle with how she could do that, how she could write a story about somebody who has been hurt their whole life, and then she turns around and uses her wealth and influence to inflict that hurt on a bunch of people who didn't do anything wrong. They just existed. Just like Harry, they just existed. And she's being hateful towards them. It's really awful.
It's mind-boggling on, I think, several accounts. One being that J.K. Rowling, for me, was never human. She was this person who wrote something that saved my life. She was this abstract idea and ideal of someone I wanted to be. I had very little information about her. I had very little insight into her life. I of course never met her. So I idealized her, as you do, as we do with all celebrities in some aspect. I put her on a pedestal and gave her part and was part of the party that gave her power. And only to find out that she has been actively hurting people the entire time is so frustrating.
Yeah. I mean, I think frustration is a good way to describe it. I think frustration is a really good way to describe it, because there's so much good in her books, and yet, you know, there's some bad in her books too. Like, there's some very dangerous stereotypes in her books. Like, you know, since we're talking about trans things right now, let's mention Rita Skeeter. Like, it's not an accident that Rita Skeeter is an adult who transforms to go spy on kids in the bathroom, and that she's described as having manly hands. This is clearly not a mistake. In hindsight, it is obvious that J.K. Rowling has always felt this way about trans women. She's always felt that they were predators who wanted to hurt children. And I don't know, I guess I have to imagine that she doesn't actually know any trans women, because it's very hard for me to imagine her knowing trans women and thinking these things, because there's just no way. There's no way. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. I think that she also has an incredibly different perspective on trans women. So I wouldn't be surprised if she does know trans women, but if the trans women are of the same generation and belief of her. There are of that generation people, or like the idea of butch lesbianism, like, and that is of that TERF mindset of you can still be transgender and masculine, but also it's a really confusing concept of, sorry, I'm trying to
You're
find
good.
words because it's just so frustrating.
No, I understand. So I think that what J.K. Rowling, I feel like what a lot of her rhetoric seeks to do is put people in these easy to understand boxes, when the truth is that gender and sexuality is different and individual for every person, and the act of trying to categorize people, like, is literally harmful. So, you know, that I think is where a lot of this comes from. And I know that there are trans people who hold transphobic beliefs. Like, I know that exists.
Yeah.
So, I'm not, so when I say, like, it's hard for me to imagine that she has trans friends, like, I think you're probably right. Like, she probably does know trans people, but that doesn't make it any more difficult. I struggle with understanding how trans people exist that have these kind of transphobic beliefs, you know? I do, because it's hard.
I think also a huge part of this is to recognize that what she is saying and spouting is about age too.
It's true.
She doesn't talk about, in her essay and what she has said on Twitter so far, she doesn't mention people of a certain maturity transitioning, which is why I think when I was saying that she has probably trans friends who are her age, it's not an issue. Her issue is the idea of, like, people being trained to believe that this is okay, or that it's children who do not actually understand what they want or think. Like, it's very demeaning of a younger class of people.
Yeah, it is super demeaning.
Which puts another lens into this, to sit there and be like, no, actually, I know trans people who knew that they were trans at 4 years old.
Yeah.
Who wanted to go by boy names and do boy things and be one of the boys, and now as adults are men. They knew at 4, and to, like, assume that because you're young you don't actually know what you want is incredibly harmful and hurtful.
I think so too. There is, like, I mean, I do think that, like, okay, when I was a kid I was dumb, right? Like, I had some dumb ideas and I had some dumb desires and dumb thoughts, but, like, that doesn't mean that I had no agency whatsoever. And I think trying to pretend like kids don't know anything about anything, it's like, okay, so what do you think happens, like, when you turn 18, that you magically wake up and suddenly understand the world? Like, no. No, that's not true. Kids do have a level of agency about themselves and their wants and their desires. They do. And to try to pretend that like it hurts these kids to experiment with their gender is so wrong
Yep.
because like okay, so maybe some kid decides that they're trans and they're very young and it turns out that they change their mind later. Okay, so what the hell did it hurt? Like, what does it matter? So what? You know, they're not, no, like, 4-year-old is getting put on hormones. They maybe, like, if
Yep.
they're very precocious, they're getting put on hormone blockers, but they haven't even been through puberty yet. So they're not getting this whole thing of what she thinks is happening where kids are being forced to be put on, like, hormones that you give adults is just not the case. That just doesn't happen.
Well, like there's a really interesting assumption that she has that she assumes that women or trans men who were women, who are or who were born and assigned female at birth, thought it would be easier to be a trans man than to be a woman.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Are you not paying attention to how trans people are treated in this day and age?
For real.
I would take being a lesbian any day because of how that treatment is than to being a trans man. But that's not what is happening. People aren't actively like, actually, it'll be an easier experience being transgender than being cis
And gay, right?
It doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't.
And then also, I think her rants show that she really hasn't done research on how hard and difficult, at least in the States, I can only really speak to the States, how hard and difficult it is to receive hormone therapy.
Yeah.
And the
it's
amount
usually
of
a whole
hoops that you have
process.
to go. Yeah. People aren't just like, oh, you're feeling a little depressed. Okay, here's some testosterone. Like, that's not how that works.
Yeah, that doesn't happen. That doesn't happen. Yeah, and like this idea that like, oh, we have to ban trans women from women's bathrooms because they're going to go in there and prey on women. Like to me, this there's like, okay, so here's my analogy. Like she tries to pretend like there's some kind of magical spell on the women's bathroom doors, like this is the
right?
Gryffindor dorms or something, that if you're a man you can't enter. But that's not true. Like if some man wants to go into the women's bathroom and harass and hurt women, he can just walk in and do it. He doesn't have to put on a woman costume to do it, right? So this idea that somebody is going to take the effort and time and patience to exist as a trans woman, and sometimes that takes years, sometimes that is a process of years, just so that they can go and hurt women in women's bathrooms, that is ridiculous. That is ridiculous. There's no way anyone would go through all that. If a man wanted to do that, he'd just walk into the bathroom. He has feet, just walk in the bathroom.
I also think it's fascinating that she's paying so much attention to who's in the bathroom with her in public.
For
like,
real.
I sit there and I go, I don't know. I wash my hands and go into the bathroom. That's about it. Like,
yeah, I mean, I don't look. I mean, I don't. It's been a while since I've been in a public bathroom, but
yeah, what are they?
oh my god, I don't know her. But you know, I mean, I never. I can't remember a time that I paid any attention as to who was in a public bathroom with me. Like that just doesn't happen. That doesn't happen. So I don't know like what it is that she thinks is happening. I really believe that she has gotten some like problematic beliefs, and she's had them for forever, and then she gets on social media and she hears like the next level of the problematic belief, right? And then she gets in with those people, and then she hears the next level, and then she hears the next level, and it's like a rabbit hole that she goes down and down and down until she's arrived at these conclusions that are just so removed from any reality that it becomes like this very violent thing. Like the act of her posting this stuff to Twitter to these thousands and thousands of people it literally incites violence against trans people, and she just doesn't even like pause to think about that, like ever. It seems like she's so concerned about her popularity on Twitter, more so than the fact that she might really be hurting people.
But that's the thing, right? Is that it's so much easier to care about yourself than it is about how your actions affect other people.
Mm-hmm.
And she doesn't really care the negative effects of how her actions fit other people. She considers sitting there and if someone sits there and goes, you are literally causing people to want to commit suicide, she sees that as a personal attack instead
Yeah.
of being like, no, your words are literally wanting to let people commit suicide, because that's the power and responsibility you hold as a voice. And you wanted to be an active political person because you've been tweeting about politics for the last 6 years, then know that your voice has a consequence. That could be a positive one or a negative one.
Yeah, and it's not just her. Like when she tweets something, it gets amplified by everybody that agrees with her because they're able to use that as a springboard. So what I think J.K. Rowling misses a lot is that anything that she says is now repeated and repeated and repeated in a way that's not true for people who aren't famous. And so she's not just an individual spouting her beliefs. She's more than that. And that's, you know, that's something that she has taken on, you know, since becoming an activist.
Yes. Which I think is ridiculous to call her an activist.
Yeah. I mean, well, she thinks she's an activist, right? Like she thinks she is.
Like at the end of the day, she thinks she's a woman's activist, which I think is an important fact to bring up. That this whole basis, her whole argument hinges on the idea that a cis woman's experience is different from a trans woman's experience.
But the thing is, nobody is trying.
True,
yeah, nobody's trying to say that's not.
It doesn't matter. It it's different, but so is the experience of a black woman.
Yeah.
Versus a white woman.
Yeah.
So is the experience of a woman in the United States versus the experience of someone in Ethiopia.
Yeah, like it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like nobody is. Yeah, like nobody thinks that two. I mean, at least I've never heard it, except from TERFs, you know, arguing against it. But I've never heard someone try to pretend that there is some kind of universal woman experience. There just isn't. Yeah. There isn't. That's not a thing. So
and someone else having a different experience from you doesn't lessen your experiences.
Yeah, it doesn't change. It doesn't change that your experiences are still valid. They are still valid. Oh yeah, Hell yeah, we got level 20. So I think that means, I thought level 20 was when it expanded. Maybe it's level 21 that I get the next expansion. But I got level 20.
Bigger garden.
Soon. So maybe it's next level that I actually get that.
So I think giving J.K. Rowling letting her, whoever gave her and lets her continue to have a platform and a voice on Twitter is really making a mistake. And that's the mistake I just wanted to talk about.
Yeah, so I guess I can say this. For me, and you know, not everybody's going to make the same decisions that I make, but for me, for anything that is not currently in production, I'm not. This is the last time I'll probably wear a Harry Potter shirt on stream. I'll probably only talk about Harry Potter in a few videos that are already in the middle of production, like the Zodiac videos. I know have some Harry Potter references in them, but anything that I've not finished production or that I've not, you know, started production on, Harry Potter's not going to be a thing anymore because I can't add to it. Like, I can't add to it. And the truth is that J.K. Rowling is alive. She is here, and the more that she is spoken about and promoted, the more her hateful ideas spread and hurt more people. So that's kind of the thing that I really want to stress, is that I'll never make another Harry Potter roleplay, I don't think. I'll never make a video about Harry Potter in the way that I've kind of used it as a good example of things in the past. Like, I can't do that because I see what that's turning into. And until J.K. Rowling either, you know, is no longer with us, or until she recants all of the harm that she's done, I can't. Attention is clearly the currency. And so I can't give it to her anymore. And it's really sad because I love Harry Potter, but, you know, I can't do it. I think
that's 100% fair. You also have a bigger platform than I do. So I think that is reasonable. I am choosing to use my voice and my decisions in another way. I cannot, and I'm not in a place where I can give up Harry Potter. I just haven't been. I will continue to talk about it. Esther and I are still going to make a Harry Potter podcast. However, I recognize that the fandom is where the focus needs to be.
Yeah.
The wonderful thing about Harry Potter is that it has, I believe, grown outside of J.K. Rowling's reach. It's like The Fault in Our Stars, which is a book written by John Green, has an author in it that that's book in the book within the book leaves on a cliffhanger. And Hazel Grace, who is the protagonist of John Green's story, goes and tries to desperately find out what happens after the cliffhanger. And the author speaks about the fact that it is no longer his. He doesn't know. It's no longer his. He published and finished the book.
Yeah, so what's the ending? He doesn't know.
Yeah, anything that is out of it is solely on the responsibility of the reader. And I believe that the fandom has done such an amazing job creating such a world that is inclusive and wonderful and lacking in hate. Well, I can't really say that. I think there's a lot of racism still happening in the Harry Potter fandom, but for the most part, really inclusive. Especially there are really inclusive fan fiction authors, fan artists, anything like that. So what I am choosing to do is I will no longer monetarily be giving anything to J.K. Rowling or Harry Potter. I will not be buying official merch. I will not be going to the parks. I will any books from now on that I will own will be used. I will not be watching the new Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them movie.
Yeah, no, not going to watch it either.
Nope. I won't I won't be using the Wizarding World websites. I will be exclusively working off of, when I'm doing research and stuff like that, working off of Wiki. I won't buy, rent, or see the movies. I won't see Cursed Child. However, I will continue to give money to the fandom. When I want merch, I will buy alternate merch. I will buy Etsy artists merch, or I will listen to Wizard Rock or read fan fiction. Support queer creators within the fandom, as well as people who just, even if they're not in the fandom, but do definitely make merch and stuff like that. As well as people of color. The people who are trying to be silenced by J.K. Rowling's words, I will support and lift up. And that is what I can actively do to remain a part of the fandom, to keep Harry in my life, but at the same time sit there and be like, oh, it's really convenient that J.K. Rowling no longer exists. While also acknowledging that she does exist, because it is important to read Harry Potter through that lens and let that not be forgotten.
Yeah. I think the best that we can hope for right now, because it does feel like that J.K. Rowling is going down this rabbit hole and it's not going to stop anytime soon, is that we just pray it doesn't get worse. So we just pray that we don't find out that, like some of the other horrible tropes inside of Harry Potter, it turns out that that's actually her beliefs. Like, I mean, it's sad, but the way... Oh, thank you so much for the follow.
She's racist, we know that.
Warcraft Admirer 33. Thank you so much for the follow here. So yeah, I mean, like in the book, she's incredibly anti-Semitic. We're doing great. How are you doing? She's incredibly anti-Semitic in the books, and I wouldn't be surprised if a year from now, all of a sudden, we're going to get some anti-Semitic takes from her. And, you know, the way that the house elves are portrayed as like this slave class that likes being a slave, like things like that. Like, what are we going to find out as far as what her real opinions are in regard to that stuff? You know what I mean? Like, if this is how she really feels about trans people, where does it stop? Where does it stop? So like that's where I'm like really nervous, because I do think that once you kind of start down these rabbit holes, it's very hard to get out, because you just get more and more insular, because you get love bombed by these people, and then what you end up with is this situation where you have nobody around telling you, like, hey, wait a second, this is actually probably not a good thing to tweet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I'm a huge Viva Pinata fan too, Warcraft Admirer. This is one of my favorite games. I've replayed it so many freaking times. So just to kind of catch you up, what we're doing right now is while Land and I are having our kind of, conversation, I'm trying right now just to get get level up. I think I just need one more level so I can get the last expansion on the garden. And then we're going to start really kind of like organizing the gardens and showing off all the different pinatas and things like that. But right now I'm just trying to level up as fast as possible.
Making it aesthetically pleasing.
Yes. So that's kind of where I am in regards to the J.K. Rowling stuff. Yeah. I don't like it. I hope that one day she realizes what she's doing and that she recants her ways. But until then, no more J.K. Rowling takes on Twitter from me.
Fair enough.
And there's only going to be a few more mentions of Harry Potter in the rest of the videos for 2020. And that's it. That's all. No more Harry Potter roleplay, which is so sad. But at this point, my characters that I do play are so divorced from canon that I think that we're that's the best I can do.
I'm like, you don't play any canon Harry Potter characters, do you?
I mean, I still have Ludo, which he's technically a canon character.
God. Wow, how did I forget Ludo?
But he's so divorced.
He's the biggest one too.
Yeah, he's so divorced from canon that it doesn't really matter in that way. No one even realizes he's Harry Potter character until I tell them. So that's fine. Have you gotten any fancy bird type pinatas? So I did get the Candaries at one point, but I sold them because they only let you have so much room in the garden. So but at some point I'm gonna actually start organizing these gardens and collecting all the pinatas and things like that once I can get the biggest expansion, because I don't want to be doing all that stuff on a small garden. No, I needed the blackberries. Okay, so go back.
Are we good on this, or do we want to move forward on our story on how we continued after LOOH?
10. Yeah, let's continue. I think that we've beaten this TERF horse to death. I don't really have anything else to say about it. Yeah, I mean, I wish to, but I don't have anything else personally to add to that conversation.
Awesome, sounds good.
Okay.
So we've left off our story, our origin story, on that we just started this RP that lasted 2 years that kind of just fell into your lap.
Yep.
And then we formed the mod team that just kind of stuck together with Yumi and Shadow.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there we've opened quite a few other RPs together.
We have several at this point, lots.
Yeah, I guess it is more than 2, so several. We were running 2 at the same time at one point when we had First Blood?
Yeah, when we had the Harry Potter roleplay, and then we had a Disney Game of Thrones kind of crossover roleplay, which we can talk about that for sure, because I made some serious mistakes there that we can talk about. But we were running both of those at the same time. We were dedicating a lot of time to roleplay at that point. Obviously, I did not have a YouTube channel. You were not doing a podcast. I had a
school, so that was a lot easier too.
And I had a much easier job that I was doing at that point. It was what I was doing for my day job was very easy, so I was able to do that, right? But yeah, that's where we went next. And I think that's the first part where we can stop and I can kind of address one of my mistakes. So I'll go first, and then you can share something from you, so that maybe it takes a little bit of embarrassment off, right, if I go first. So one huge mistake I made at that time was overextending not only myself but also the roleplay itself. So we were running a Disney and Game of Thrones crossover roleplay. And since it was Game of Thrones crossover, essentially what that meant was that we had all of these different kingdoms, and it was very intricate, and the design was really cool. But the problem is that because the design had basically 4 different areas characters could be in, we were kind of running 4 different role plays at the same time, on top of running the Harry Potter role play that was its own thing, right? So that was a huge mistake on my part. One, I took on running 2 role plays at once. I should not have been doing that. That was dumb. I should have just designed that First Blood, that role play, and put it in my back pocket and waited until we were done with Love Our Only Hope, right? That's what I should have done. And then the other thing I should have done is First Blood the design of it was fucked from go. Like it was fucked from go, because it was basically 4 different role plays in one. And that's where I learned something that I talk about in a bunch of my videos, and I'm actually going to be talking about that in a video that's going up soon on my channel, about how it is very important in role plays to make sure that it is easy for all of the characters to interact with each other. If you have more than one location in your role play, like you're basically every like different location that you make that's not easy to travel to, it's a different role play. It's a different role play. So I royally screwed that up, not only by overextending myself and therefore turning myself in like in a social sense, in like a leader sense, into a bad mod. Like I just did it wrong. Like I did it wrong because I was running too many things at once and I was stressed out. And in addition to that, the role play itself was too many things, which contributed further to the stressed out. We did. Yeah, so we did. We had 4 mods actually. We had me, Landon, Naomi, who's in chat, and then Shadow, who's not in chat with us today. We had that many mods, and it still was a freaking cluster and impossible. And that roleplay was fun in a lot of ways. And someday I would like to go back and redo it with a totally different setup. But yeah, that was a huge mistake, was overextending myself, because I'm a very creative person. I have new ideas all the time, right? So now what I do is I just keep like a folder and documents of like roleplay ideas. That I want to tackle someday, that I want to flesh out someday. And when I'm feeling inspired, when I'm feeling like, oh, this is a cool idea, I got to get it out of my head, I put it down in my document, right? I put it down in my document, and then I put it away. And when it's time to open, when people start getting bored with the current role play and it's time to open a new role play, then what I do is I go to my folder and I'm like, what looks cool? What looks cool that looks like people would be interested in right now? And I just pull an idea out of that hat, as it were, right? Which works way better. But oh my God, why I didn't realize how bad of an idea First Blood was, I still kind of like kick myself a little bit to this day, because now looking back, it is so obvious how dumb that idea was and how it was never going to work. It was never going to work, even if I was my best self, right?
Here's the thing. I have to argue this, because I think what First Blood did for us in the long run was fantastic. Because if we had started or like tried to do another thing together when LOOH was ending, I'm not sure if it would have been as successful as it ended up being. Because we already had that experience of like starting something new. We knew what worked. We knew what didn't work. Was it the best timing? No. And it certainly did not set up that RP for success. But I do think as a mod team and as like writers and partners, it did a really good job for us to like almost trauma bond us.
Oh my God. I guess we kind of did trauma bond in that role play a little bit. Holy crap. Because we really did. There was a lot that we went through in that particular roleplay. And during that time where we were running both LOH and First Blood at the same time, right? I think there was like a small element, as traumatic as roleplay could be, a small element of trauma bonding there.
Yeah. I think for me, what it did is I realized that I can't be in multiple role plays.
I can't either. And that is very obvious to me now. And it was not obvious before trying to do that.
Yeah. And I think there was like a Marauders RP, another different like school RP that we were involved in too.
Yeah, we joined it, but we only were in there for like 2 months before we were like, I don't like it, bye.
Yeah, I think that helped me learn, like that was part of that same process, because I think we did that and then we did First Blood, that it was like, no, I do need to focus on one story and one world, even if I'm just joining something. I can't be in multiple places and do multiple things.
Yep, like my brain just can't do it. When it comes to role play, like I need one setting that I'm in.
Exactly. So I think First Blood, I would love to see it again. Naomi is shouting in the chat.
I see that.
It needs to happen.
I see that. I'm not ignoring you, Naomi. I see it. I just, it needs it would need serious rework, right? Like serious rework.
I like, okay, and here's the other thing. The thing I am very, very grateful for is that the fact that you are in charge, because I do
Oh my
not
God.
work in that, like, hey, here is an idea, let me put it away. And as Naomi and you can attest, I am a, hey, here's an idea, let's plot it 3 years out.
Yeah, and that's a whole thing for other reasons that just doesn't really work because we don't know how long the role play is going to last, because the role play ends when everyone gets bored with it, and when everyone gets bored with it is super subjective to the way that the role play is set up, who all's in it, who all's active, what characters are going on. Like, it is so subjective. We never know exactly when that's going to be.
100%, which is why I think it's my mistake. Like, if we're talking about RP mistakes that I've made, is getting overly invested in an RP thinking a year out. Like, because we had, and I definitely had LOOH planned out for another 6-7 months.
Yeah.
And then when it ended so suddenly, it was like, what the fuck? Seriously?
It kind of like throws you for a loop, right?
Plans. And doesn't that mean anything
Nope.
to anyone?
No, plans are for losers. That's not true. I like planning too, but I can't plan more than 6 months in advance or I'm just going to hurt myself.
But I also agree though with you as a mod, as like, well, on several levels. On a mod team, you can't plan it out that much because it is up to your RP players.
Yep.
It is up to what the direction is, how slow people are going, how fast people are going.
Yep.
What are people interested in? What are the ships and the situations that are really like grabbing people's attention? That is so incredibly important with an RP that is so subjective week by week.
Yeah.
That you can't plan anything beyond that. So I learned that on a mod level. And then I also learned it as a player level. Do I actually learn that lesson? Probably not. Am I still planning things 3 years out? A little bit. But you know what? I'm less upset when they don't happen or when they change.
I think that's the key, right? Yeah, Eric, we love to shade each other. We've been friends for 7 years, so we've gotten, we've gotten to that stage at this point. So that's part of why Landon is is such a good co-host for this, because we have that good connection, which I do not form very quickly with people. As anyone who's tried to be my friend well knows, I'm incredibly slow at the whole friendship thing.
Karen just knows that I like to be a little asshole. So
well, that's okay. So like what was I was gonna say something about that. Yeah, so like when it comes to that stuff, I just feel like you have to be careful, right? Like, you have to be careful because at the end of the day, like, you don't own that role play. Like, even though I'm the main mod and I'm like technically running things, and like I mean, if we ever have to, I get final say, but like, it's not my role play. Like, it's not. At the end of the day, I can't own it because I don't control every character, and if I did, it would just be a book.
See, here's the problem. I want sometimes to own every character because I want to write a book. I'm just too lazy, which is why I'm RPing.
Oh my god. So that's the T, because I think what you're explaining, like what you're describing for what you go through, is really not uncommon. I think a lot of role players go through this, and I think that's that sense of control, that sense of needing control is incredibly common. So I actually am really a bit curious to hear, like, how, as somebody that struggles with that control, because I really don't struggle it. With me, it's fine. Like, to me, it's not like an internal struggle anymore. I got over it so long ago that I don't really remember what that's like. But do you have like maybe any tips or something for the people that are like, I just can't give it up. I just need to do all the controlling all the time. Like, how did you let it go, I guess is what I'm trying to ask.
I think part of it is recognizing that, yes, the story that you would have written would have been awesome, but that's not the story that's happening. And if you want the opportunity to play that story, then you can find and seek out the opportunity to play that story. Let it be known it should not be in that same RP so that we are not copying each other's storylines. But if there's something where it's like, oh man, that like you see a ship, this is just coming off the top of my head. You see a ship that you like, and that ship ends with one of the people killing the other, even though that's not how you would have, or you would have written it that like one of the people would have killed the other. But they didn't do that. Instead, they went and got married and had babies.
Yeah.
You can sit there and acknowledge that, yeah, that would have been a really cool storyline, and 100% that would have been cool and valid, but that's not what is happening in the RP. You can't pretend that that is what is happening in the RP. And if you want that, if that is something you desire and think would have been cool, then find a way to make it yourself, whether it be in the next RP or a one-on-one or any other sort of thing, that if you want to write that out, you write it out.
Yeah. Somewhere else that's not, cannibalizing within that role play that you're in.
Yeah. Yes. Please don't do that.
Yeah, that's really annoying, right? Because everybody wants to feel special, right? So that's really annoying when people do that. Pickles had an interesting comment that I want to read out just so that everybody sees it. GM's job is to simply give locations and events. What the players do with it is the role play. For some, a hard lesson to learn. Yeah, it is really hard. It is really hard, I think, for a lot of people, because when you create a role play, the amount of work that goes into building the world, at least for me, like, it's a lot. Like, I put a lot of thought into, like, how am I going to put these elements in? What's going to be the most fun? What's going to be the most interesting? Like, it's a lot. Like, I can't... The amount of hours that I spend thinking about it, in addition to like writing it and talking about it, like it's so much. So I totally get like why people feel that ownership, there's kind of like a little bit of a sunk cost fallacy, right? Like, I put in all this time and effort, I want it to be exactly what I want it to be. So I do think that that's where a lot of it comes from. I'm going to read out what Naomi's saying too. I definitely feel like I learned that lesson from First Blood, not to run away with lore creation. You have to give enough to inspire members, not stifle that inspiration and imagination. Yeah, absolutely. Like, that's the other thing with First Blood, is not only was it like too much, like it was over designed in so many aspects. It wasn't just locations. Like, locations was my main takeaway from it, but it was over designed in the locations, it was over designed in the amount of characters, it was over designed in the amount of different Disney properties that we pulled in. It was over designed in as far as the plot goes. Like, there was way too many main plot threads going on. Like, it was over designed in every aspect. It was. And less is more. Like, less is clearly more. And every other role play we've run after that, we've put in a lot less to those main elements, and they've all ended up, in my opinion, better, more intricate stories. I don't know if you would agree with that, but that's definitely what I feel like, because then when the players, they have just a little bit, they can really take it and run with it, and they're always going to come up with better stuff than I came up with, always.
Well, it's kind of that thing that you said, that like, if you're creating it, you're owning it. So if you give the opportunity for your players who are playing it to create part of it, they then are more invested in staying and making a good story.
Yeah.
I think a great example, and I mean, we'll talk more about Atlantis as we get to that part in our timeline, but Atlantis is a great example of that. We have people who, there was a time probably about a month ago where it felt like every day that people were adding ideas to lore.
Yeah.
Or just talking about it at the very least.
Yeah.
That it was very nice to see players who did not create the RP being able to invest themselves in the RP.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's good. I also, on kind of that note of lore creation, I think that's also why I'm very grateful that both you and Naomi are part of the mod team, because I don't get involved with the lore because I do feel too much ownership over it, and I do like to run away with it. I haven't learned that lesson, and I don't think I want to learn that lesson, because I think that if I did learn that lesson, it would be very, very hard for me to go back to it when it comes to like novel writing. So I'm perfectly okay with helping out every once in a while and coming up with things and certain tasks, but being part of the entire world building process would be very, very difficult for me, because I would want to plot everything. Frustrated when things were changed or not plotted. But that's just me knowing me.
Yeah, no, and I think that's valid. Pickles, I learned that the hard way with clans I ran and worlds I created. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's kind of what I'm saying with a lot of the mistakes that we're talking about. Like, I think a lot of people learn it the hard way. And one of the things I'm seeking to do, with my channel, with the Discord server, and with this stream, is to help people that don't want to learn the hard way, to try to give them an opportunity so that they don't have to learn the hard way. Because I feel like ever since roleplay has moved over to be more of a social media thing and less of like a forum and chat room thing, you don't see examples of what good roleplay is. And I do think you're almost forced in a way to learn the hard way. And I hate that. It doesn't have to be that way. It wasn't like that when I was role playing on forums. Like, everyone made it very clear what the standard was and what you were supposed to be doing and what worked and what didn't work, and that's just not true anymore. So my hope is that at least some people watching my channel are given the opportunity to not have to learn things the hard way, the way that the way that I did, and the way that Landon is saying that she did. Right.
I also think that for some people the hard way is an integral part of their RP experience.
Oh yeah, I mean sometimes the hard way is the only way, but
yeah, exactly. I think when it comes to one-on-ones, that world building can be so dangerous, because if you're more invested than your partner is,
oh god, yeah,
that's such a dangerous situation.
And then it's like so frustrating.
Yeah. And I think that's where this advice really comes into helpful, is like when I say, do not over own your world that you are building, listen to it. But I think also when you're becoming a mod, trying to figure out that balance is so important to the experience of modding, and is for a group RP, that listening to this advice might just be a step in learning that lesson.
Yeah, I know. I think that's valid. I mean, a lot of people like can't learn stuff until they're faced with it, right? And that's totally perfectly normal. It's just that's just how it goes down sometimes, right? So I think so that gets us up to First Blood. So the death of First Blood, and then the death of LOOH. Yeah, they kind of happened around the same time. It was kind of like we closed one and then we closed the other. It was within probably the 6 months of each other. Yeah, it was pretty close. First Blood came around 1 year, and then it lasted about 9 months. And so I think pretty quickly, LOOH, or Low as I call it, died fairly quickly after that. Yeah, and that took us into a different style of RP. A totally different style after that, I would say. Because the next one that we opened after that, so another thing that was going on around this time, in addition to like what I was going through, and honestly, looking back, this probably contributed to it. There was a rise on Tumblr of antis. And if you guys don't know what fandom antis are, it's basically people that go around trying to moralize in fandom. Like the way that they see it is like the things that you ship and the types of things that you're interested in like reflect directly on you as a person, right? So if you like something that's a bit sketchy, right, it means that you're interested in that in real life and you're an abuser and you're a bad person, right? And this is something that I don't know how much I ever shared this with you, Landon, because I shielded you guys from a lot of this. But First Blood, for whatever reason, there was a lot of antis in the Disney fandom, and we would get messages, and I would just delete a lot of them, but we would get messages all the time about how we were evil for showing this or using that trope, or how we were racist because of this character or that character. And it was so creatively stifling. It was so creatively stifling that like I couldn't even, because they were anonymous and harassing messages, like I couldn't even figure out like what was genuine criticism and what was like just trolls. I couldn't, because there was so many of them, and some of them were really mean. So it was really a challenge, and it was always coming from people that weren't even in the role play. They weren't even invested. I don't know why they cared so much, but it's still a thing. Like antis are still a thing, and they do the same thing. They harass people. They send very hateful messages. They suicide bait people. All those things. They're awful. So we were getting a lot of those messages in First Blood. And that ultimately is what made me say, I cannot be on Tumblr anymore. Now, well, because I thought you did individuals for a while. For a little bit, but like even then it started getting bad there. Okay. And I was really just role playing with Naomi and Shadow. And that was really it. I had stopped. Like that was the other thing too, is that when Lo broke up, we all kind of went to individual character, like Tumblr RPs. And that's when the antis were getting really, really bad. And then I like ghosted
the fuck out of there. I like groups.
But groups weren't viable anymore because, you know, because I was just not in a place where I could do it, and I'd screwed up First Blood so bad, and I needed time to really reflect on that, right? Yeah, crazy Anons on indies. Yeah, so it happened on indies too, but for whatever reason, for me, when it came to like getting them on First Blood, getting them on the main account for that, it hurt me in this way because I felt like I was responsible for protecting you guys. And so, like, I took it on in a way that I didn't take it on when I would get those kind of Anons on my indie account, you know? So I couldn't deal. So we had a little hiatus from role-playing where we barely role-played for a while or didn't at all, you know?
Yeah.
And then, eventually, I found Discord as a possible platform for role-playing, and because due to the setup there was no anonymous messages, it was very hard for aunties to come and harass. So I was like, this is wonderful, I can create a little bubble. And that's what I did.
And that's what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I quit Tumblr, you quit Tumblr.
Mm-hmm.
And then I remember out of the blue getting a message from you, like on Facebook.
Yep, because that's the only way I knew to contact you anymore.
Being like, hey, yo, wanna join this thing? And I was like, I don't know what this thing is, but I guess. Yeah,
pretty much. I think there was probably a little bit more to it than that because of the ghosting, like, and stuff, and because of the ghosting and because of where I was at that point and you know, not in the right headspace. Like, because I did some mean stuff because of, you know, all of those things that were going on. I think there was probably more to the conversation. I think I was originally reaching out to you to apologize, but I really don't remember. But I do know that I invited you to Discord at that point.
There was, we hadn't, like, we'll be honest. We hadn't spoken in
like months. It was a long time.
It was because I moved to Maine also when all of this was going on.
Yep.
And so we probably hadn't spoken in a year and a half, 2 years.
It was a long time.
And then you reached out, and it was a rekindling of the friendship, asking how you are, asking what's up, what's changed, and then it came into, because I had also known that you were still RPing because you were doing Pokemon.
Yep, I did like a very brief Pokemon roleplay, which it's not worth mentioning because like it died so fast. Because I wasn't really invested because I really was struggling with even being on Tumblr at all.
But it was more of like it wasn't that it was important or anything, but I knew that you were still RPing because we still had a mutual friend.
Yep.
And then you reached out and we rekindled this, and then we talked about your idea because I was a part of Yinsed's building.
Yep.
So it was like this idea for this new place to do new RPs, and that Naomi wanted in on it, and Shadow was still there, and that you had this great idea, and why don't I come join and see what's up with it?
Yep. Yes, Erin and her Magikarp cupcake. I don't think, was that the name? I know she had like an Emolga and a Magikarp, and I don't really remember that RP very well because like there was just so much. There was so much going on for me mentally at that point. I was going through some real like anxiety type of things at that time, so I don't really remember a lot of it. But yes, I did play Erin there, and I think she had like a Magikarp and an Emolga. So then I found Discord essentially, and I was like, hell yeah, we can roleplay, I can get away from the aunties, I can get in a better headspace, I can be a better mod again, like all of these thoughts are going through my head, right? And then I'm like, I need to reach out to Landon. So, because if I could be better, right, like if I could get over and not have to deal with a lot of that stuff, then I was like, oh, well, there's no reason to not be talking to her, right?
Yeah.
So I reached back out to you, we rekindled, and I was like, I want to make this Discord roleplay. I don't really know how Discord works, but I know you have skills at being a good mod, so come help me figure it out.
Let's build a world together.
Yes. So then we made Yensid, which was a Disney roleplay. another Disney role play, but instead of it being like really complicated, we basically stole Once Upon a Time's plot. So it was kind of like serendipitous, right? Like we met in a Once Upon a Time role play, and then we made basically an original Once Upon a Time-ish role play to rekindle. So we made Yensid, and that one was really successful. Like we met a lot of people on Discord that we wouldn't have met before. Like I was still advertising on Tumblr, but it even got to the point where I stopped advertising on Tumblr. Like during this time of Yensid, I completely 100% left Tumblr, and then about a year later, they had the pornography ban, which really was just the nail in the coffin. Like, what the hell is Tumblr good for anymore anyways, right?
Porn, I don't know.
Right? That was their only saving grace still. So that was the complete conversion over to Discord. And it's not perfect. Like, I do have gripes with some things on Discord. It's not ideal for role playing, but one huge benefit of it is very safe for us. I feel like on Discord, I have the tools to keep you guys safe from seeing, creeps and aunties and people that just want to harass us, right? Like the tools that Discord gives are so much better than the tools that we had on Tumblr to stay away from harm. And so that's essentially why I use Discord now, and why I like it so much, and just find it like a really good platform for roleplay.
I would also like to say it's so much easier to read other people's stuff, too.
That's true.
Because when you have the Tumblr homepage, you are either going to one person's like website, I don't even know what to call it anymore, to one person's page, and then reading all of the stuff happening there. Or it was just an amalgamation of just randomness on your homepage.
Yeah.
And you had to figure out what was going on, and you didn't know where things were started, and you didn't know where you left off. And Discord fixed every single one of those issues.
It did. Yeah, it absolutely did.
So 100% Discord is the best place that I've ever RP'd.
Yeah, me too.
Down.
And I mean, I've never found like a website that really had everything that I wanted when it comes to roleplay, but Discord gets pretty darn close. If it had just like maybe just a few additional features for keeping things, organized in more of like a forum thread-like sense, it might be even better. But we still make it work with the way that they divide out channels.
Yeah, channel limit is the only thing.
Yeah, that kind of sucks.
I don't know why, but my anxiety is just like, we could have 50 channels in our RP, and I'd be like, we're near channel limit, even though we're not.
Yeah, we're not near the channel limit, but yeah, that is the only thing that kind of sucks, is there is a channel limit, which means if your roleplay goes on too long and you end up creating too many channels, eventually you have to delete channels, which sucks. Yeah. But it is what it is.
Yeah. So then we did Yensid, which was awesome. I think that it had its ups and its downs. I don't think there were any like major mistakes.
No, I don't think so. I think that one was pretty smooth, to be honest.
Yeah, I think the thing that we learned is that Spoof Day could not exist anymore.
Unfortunately.
Spoof Day, for the people who were not with us at that point, was basically an AU day from the RP that we used to do once a month. In some of our old RPs. And because either our writing styles got bigger and better or whatever, channel limits, all of those fun things, spoof couldn't exist anymore.
Oh, major mistake, letting Theo touch the whale. Yes. Oh my god.
When the giant ashore whale exploded all over the town, that's one way of doing it.
Yeah, no, I guess I would agree with you for that. Unfortunately, Spoof Day is not something that fits us anymore. It was unique to Tumblr in the sense that what we were able to do is like have like a time limit, but we just don't write like that anymore, because pretty much all of us, and this is really what my role plays are designed for nowadays, pretty much all of us are either college students or working adults, and we just got too much stuff to do. We can't sit online and role play for hours, unfortunately. I mean, it was wonderful when I could do that, but I've progressed in my career to where like I just can't, like I can't. I can't easily switch my brain in the way that I could when I had a much easier job, right? So my job's harder now, but I mean, I don't mind it. I love my day job. I'm basically a corporate trainer, so I'm basically a teacher, but like for adults. And I love it, but I can't. It takes a lot of brain power to do that job. Whereas before I was working as a support technician, which once you learn the 6 or 7 questions people ask over and over, like that job is cake, right? Like you don't have to use any brain power. You just go and it's fine.
Copy and paste.
Yeah, like clear your cache, right? That's the answer. And so, unfortunately, it's just not something that I can do anymore. But yeah, I miss spoof days. I miss spoof days in a way. We tried to make them work for our current style of role play, but here's what ended up happening. Here's the mistake that ended up happening, and I think we can probably both own this somewhat. Is that essentially because it was like a whole AU, it was a whole other role play for some people. Now, a lot of us really did treat it like a fun AU that didn't matter, and we were really more focused on the real role play that was going on. But there were certain players that could not do that. They were way more interested in the spoof day because it didn't matter. So because we gave them a vehicle to role play in a place that had no consequences, that's all they wanted to do, right? And so that was the mistake, is spoof day being consequence free, and so that the people that were really consequence averse, that wanted to do a lot of passive role play, all of a sudden they had the perfect place to do it all the time, and they never had to actually engage in the story with anybody else.
I think we saw that. I think a huge part of MR was like, and sorry, I'm skipping ahead, for Magic Realm, which is the next RP that happened after Ian said, was that as we started getting bored with the story, we then also did a spoof day.
Mm-hmm. And that worked much better.
Because I think it was the same thing where everyone's like, oh, it's an AU.
Yep.
And just like glomped onto it.
Yep.
And kind of left the actual story behind.
Yep. And we saw it happen in real time, right?
And that's why less than a month and a half later, we shut MR down.
Yep. We did end up doing that. Yeah. No, I think you're right. Like, as far as there is a large portion of role players that really are not interested in having consequences. They're really not interested in moving the story along. They kind of just want to, do what I was doing when I was originally role playing. They just want to chill out and play pretend, which that is 100% valid. Like, if that's what you want to do, that's 100% valid. But that's not really what my role plays are designed for. So it kind of becomes a point of contention a little bit. That I don't really allow there. I don't really know, and maybe this is something I'll eventually learn. Oh, we're gonna finally get the expansion, y'all. I don't know how to allow space where both people who want to tell an intricate story and people who just want to fart around can both coexist and happily coexist in a way that is collaborative and doesn't create division and resentment, right?
I don't think they can.
I don't think it's possible, would be my guess. I don't think it's possible. If it is, and one day I figure it out, I will be sure to tell you guys. But that's kind of where I am in regard to those things.
No, because I think what would end up happening is that you'd be ended up running two different role plays. You'd be running people. You'd be running it would exist within the same RP, but you would be in charge of all the people who were playing together who wanted consequence free, and all the people who wanted deep, intricate storyline and plot line.
Yeah, and they end up basically doing different things.
Exactly, and it would be very frustrating because one would typically, at least in my experience, move faster than the other.
Yep.
Lack of consequences tends to move faster than that of consequences.
That's true.
So they would end up running the direction of the RP, which would be very frustrating for the people who are actually suffering the consequences of those RPs being run.
Right. Yeah. No, I think so too. So Pickles is saying that they've done it before. If you want to share more, I would really love to hear about your experience with that, and like how long it lasted and kind of what happened, with the role play, or if it's still going on, or how it closed if it's not, and like all of those details. Because like my experience has just been like, I tried it keeps not working for me. I keep ending up with players who are ultimately dissatisfied on both sides of the coin. You know what I mean? And I don't want anybody, in my role plays to feel that way, right? Like, I want everyone to feel like they're having fun, like they're doing something that's worth their time, and that's worth their creative energy. And because to me, like, role play, yeah, actually you can totally hop onto the call, reach out to Landon, and she'll get you all set up. Totally fine. Yeah, so that's kind of like where I am. I don't want anyone to ever be in my role play and not feel like they are, 100% valued as a creative force in the role play, because to me, everybody that joins is a creator in the role play. And maybe this is like me taking role play too seriously, but you know what? Fuck it. I do take it seriously. Like, let's be real. But to me, like, the way when I role play, like, it's art. Like, it's art for me. And that's how I feel, and that's obviously because I feel that way. That's the kind of other role players that I attract. So I know a lot of my players feel that way. So yeah, that's kind of where I am with that sort of thing.
I am going to make sure all the mic check and stuff is working for Pickles.
Okay.
So, can you tell them what's going on with the game, and then we can continue that on?
Yes. Okay. So thank you, Landon. So she's gonna handle that. And if there's anybody else that wants to be able to hop onto the call for anything, like if you have questions that you've been holding or things like that, please go ahead and reach out to Landon now, because we have about 20 more minutes before we're gonna start working on closing down the stream and kind of saying our goodbyes and things like that. So I want to make sure that you're not cut off if that's the case, if you are kind of waiting on that. I know this has been a very long story today. But yeah, I mean, that almost gets you guys up to present day. So to kind of let you guys know, essentially what happened next is we ran Magic Reborn, which was a great role play. I've talked about it in my videos. And then eventually we got bored with that. I wouldn't say that there's any like huge major lessons learned there. We kind of, at this point, we've gotten into a groove, right? We've gotten into a groove of like, this is how we run things. We like it this way. Yes, it's not perfect, but we think it works good for us, right? So we ran that role play for about a year, and then we have our current role play now, which is Atlantis. Which is great. Like, it's a much darker tone, which we've not done in a long time. So it's been really nice to get back to that kind of darker tone in our role plays, because that's something, I mean, I'm like your problematic fave, right? So of course I like all that kind of dark and crazy stuff. So that's kind of the timeline. That's how Landon and I met. And we finally have reached our goal in this game over these, several weeks that we've been playing it, where I've got the island expansion. So what I'm doing right now is just whacking down all the hard soil, getting it all looking as nice as possible. For whatever reason, it doesn't whack down like all the hard soil, so I end up having to dig these holes to get it to like go all the way down. But you'll see when we end up making the next garden at some point. I don't know when I'll end up doing that, but at some point we'll make the next garden, and it's much easier when you're creating, your additional gardens after the first one. For whatever reason, that's why I like to finish all the expansions before I make, any other garden in this game. It definitely has the darkness of First Blood. Yes, I mean, that's really like what I was looking for. So when it came to this particular role play that we're running right now, when it came to Atlantis, there was a request from Naomi to have something that is mob boss based. So that's why we're running Atlantis right now. And then I had a craving for something darker and something supernatural. So I just kind of combined supernatural species with mob boss, and then Atlantis was born. And I've talked about it as an example in a recent video. So if you guys are curious, it's the Lorebook Tips video. Has a whole bunch of different stuff that you can learn about Atlantis if you're curious. And it tells you, kind of a lot of the things that went into it, and kind of how we structured that role play and how we built it up to make it work. And it's going really, really well. I'm really happy with this role play. There has been some challenges as far as running a role play during COVID, because this role play basically started at the start of COVID. And, there's been some challenges surrounding that, but there's only so much you can do about that, right? Like, I totally understand that there are certain things that people are going through in their lives, because of the pandemic that's going on. And unfortunately, although the rest of the world is kind of moving on, the U.S. is not. And most of our players are in the U.S. Hey, welcome back, guys.
Hey, we have Pickles here.
Hey, Pickles.
For you to talk to.
Hey everybody, how's it going?
Hey, it's going good. You sound great. I can hear you. Okay, so yeah, tell us about your experience with this role play. I'm really curious because I've not gotten this kind of thing to work very well in the past without people having resentments.
Yeah, so I was actually only a moderator on this role play.
That's
It's
okay.
it was actually my co-owner Razrin that hosted this thing for, and it has been going on and off for the past few years. It's this role play called Terminal, which actually kind of mixes. I don't know if you know the anime Ruby, but it mixes that
That's
with.
from Rooster Teeth, right?
Yes, it is.
Oh, okay, okay. So
Yeah,
it's usually like R. It's not spelled like Ruby, but that's how you say it.
yeah, it's RWBY.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it mixes that with a certain magical index and a certain scientific rare gun. Like,
Oh,
and it's actually a pretty laid back role play. We do have our major subplots with it. I'm currently not a moderator on it at the moment. I kind of, due to giving up a lot of forum style role playing and a lot of text based role playing, I no longer really wish to be. But uh, the way that he actually makes it work is really interesting, and I haven't been able to replicate it on my own role plays. And where he will actually kind of have people like myself who aren't really interested in doing the major big storylines, but can come in and RP and in these rooms that he has where, uh, well, I can actually give a good example because it's actually going on for me right now, where my character Corbin Goodwin, who is a metahuman, which is a powered human who it where they have a special gene called the X gene. And I'm getting off topic, sorry.
no, no, you're good. This is really fascinating. I'm not super
Yeah,
familiar with Ruby, but I know it's really popular. So like I've kind of like absorbed some of it through the like osmosis of existing in geek spaces online, right?
yeah.
So I'm like tangentially familiar. So this is all new information to me. So to me, it's like fascinating. So you're
All
good.
right,
Keep
well,
going.
yeah. So, generally speaking, these characters can take up one of three different kinds. Well, generally two or three different kinds of play style. I'm personally there's the combat style where people can come in and they actually will go through like these tournaments and stuff where they get their characters will actually become part of this ranking system from like C class all the way up to S class.
Okay.
And those are generally the people that you can really find not only interacting with the tournaments, but actually more of the story aspect. These are these guys these guys will go out and form their teams and will can even interact with NPCs and stuff that can be brought into their team. And this is how he actually will incorporate these non art these well non RPs and stuff. These kind of casual people that don't really want to be involved, but they kind of can get dragged into it anyway. So you will be. I personally have a post going on right now in the liberal arts building because my character Corbin is a metahuman, which is actually one of the three uh, different types of characters you can create. You can create metahumans. You can create. Uh, I can't remember what it's called, but in Ruby they're called fauna, but
Mm-hmm.
in this they're called something different. I can't remember what he calls them.
That's that
It's been
that
a
same
little bit.
concept.
Yeah, it's that concept of humanoid characters having animal-like traits,
Yeah.
and then you have your basic humans, which do not have the X gene and do not have these animal traits. Generally speaking, the animal traits actually will come from the X gene.
Gotcha.
So, and my character is a metahuman who who has adoptive muscle memory. So whatever he sees, he can actually mimic depending on how long he's viewed it for, how much concentration he has on it, up to 75% accuracy.
Nice.
So
That's
yeah,
a really
it's
cool
actually,
power. Lots of story potential there.
yeah, and so you got this university, you got these students who most of them are combat oriented. You do have these students that will go in for like liberal arts, like my character who is a musician. He prefers the violin, actually, which I would love to learn how to play in real life. That would be amazing.
Oh my god, that would be so cool. If only I had the time to get back into music. I played clarinet in high school, and then when I got to
Yeah.
college, I promptly dropped it because I don't got time for that no more.
Someone who
I used
played
to-
the violin, it was terrible. You don't want to be playing it.
I was percussionist in high school until the incident that caused me to lose flexibility in my wrist.
Oh no. I'm so
yeah.
sorry. The drum line was always the cool kids, at least in my
Hey.
school.
I love percussion. Afterwards, because I wasn't able to move my wrist anymore, I made up for the credit by joining chorus.
Okay.
Nowadays, I cannot sing with crap because I tried to sing Disturbed. That was a bad idea.
Same. I was in the church choir, and I was actually one of like the top, like the soloists and stuff. But I mean, again, that was when I was a kid, so I haven't practiced in forever. So who cares anymore? Can't do it now.
But yeah, so you have people like me that will go in and can just have these general storylines with characters that you can decide if they're non-canon or canon later on. And
Okay.
if you decide them to be canon, then that actually kind of brings up your ability to interact with other people on that level, because now your character's progressing. And because you have that progression that you didn't really mean to have anyway, you can actually be brought into the bigger overarching story. But if you decide to kind of steer away from that, you can still have these non-official, non-canon kind of situations where your character can just interact with others and have fun.
So what it sounds like then really is the key to this system, the way that your friend is running it, is that when you're role playing like real time, that's not necessarily canon to the role play. It's not canon to the role play until the scene is over and you have declared, yes, this is a canon scene. Am I understanding that right?
That is one way that you can do it. Some people will decide beforehand. They will
Okay.
actually discuss the story as a whole before they actually start RPing it.
Mm-hmm.
Because one of the biggest things for our style of Razran has been running this since before I knew him, so that's almost like 8-9 years now.
That's so long to run the same role play. That's really amazing. I'm always, because I can't do that, right? Like that's not me. I get bored with stuff. So I'm always very impressed when I meet people that like are either running or playing in the same role plays for like 3, 4, 5+ years. So that's really amazing. Kudos to him.
Yeah, well, he and I actually worked on this one RP for like 6-7 years, which was the Clanverse, where we had another person come in. You actually know her, Karen, Character Doctor.
Oh yeah, I know her.
Yeah, she's actually she was our co-GM for that.
Very cool.
It recently closed down, where it was a full fantasy where we had like kitsune, elves, drow, dwarves, goblins, you name it.
The smorgasbord.
Yeah, we had a whole smorgasbord, and each person could run a clan in that role play, and eventually it did close down because Razan and I ended up losing interest in it.
Mm-hmm.
So unfortunately, things happen in real life, and that actually brings me to one of my worst mistakes as a role player.
Are you okay? Are you comfortable sharing? I mean, that is on topic if you want to. You don't have to though. There's no pressure.
Confessing mistakes.
I can actually share that.
Okay.
Because before we actually started this thing, my biggest mistake as a role player was when I first came into forum style role playing. Originally, I was role playing on a website called Old Poetry, which is a poetry website. Go figure. And I was writing on there, but then I noticed people role playing, and
people role play everywhere. It's everywhere.
so I joined in, and I mean, I eventually our role plays became a little too risque for the site. Unfortunately, that kind of
They didn't allow that sort of stuff.
yeah. I'm not gonna get into that. This is a family-friendly stream.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Soon enough, I went on to other forums, one of which Roleplay Social, where I got my biggest start. And my big start, and probably one of my biggest mistakes, was joining this clan called the Dark Kasakage clan. Awesome idea. It was clans at war where you would have all these different elements based upon a different clan. So, and the concept was really cool, and that's actually what gave birth to our roleplay, the Clanverse. But the leader that we're under, Korak Dark Kasakage, pretty cool guy outside of roleplaying. Inside of roleplaying, he was a shit GM.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And because of this, I started getting a bad reputation. The other people that were in the clan got a bad reputation because this guy was a heavy combat role player, and I'm not sure if you actually know a lot about combat role players, but a lot of them stick by a very strict code of conduct, especially back then.
Yeah.
Like if your character was defeated and killed in a fight, that was supposed to be the end of your character. He ignored that through and through.
Oh no.
So, and because of this, I got a bad reputation. The other people in the clan got a bad reputation. We were following the wrong person because we just wanted to roleplay, because we thought that, hey, roleplay's roleplay, whatever, if the guy's bad or not. And so my biggest piece of advice from that is, if you are going into a roleplay, keep in mind that no roleplay is actually better than bad roleplay.
I agree. Oh my god. You're so right. Not role-playing is better than being miserable and, being hurt through role-playing. 100%.
Yeah.
Well, that's like anything, right? Is to be able to sit there and be like, actually, this is a bad situation. This isn't working for me. It is better if I'm not in it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And there are better RPs out there.
It's so hard to do. Like, I agree that it's hard to do because you get invested. You could think like, oh, I've spent all this time. I've spent all this energy. I've done all these creative things that I don't want to lose. Like, so I get it. Like, I get why people do that. But I think that's like a super valid lesson. I think a lot of us do learn that the hard way. I know that, like, I kind of glossed over a lot of my early role play stuff, but when I was much younger, before I started really running role plays, there was definitely times where I stayed in role plays that were not a good environment for me, and I would just stay in until the role play closed, even though I wasn't having any fun. And that was dumb. Like, why did I do that? It's a hobby. I shouldn't be doing it if it's not for fun. But I did.
There was multiple times that he actually would threaten my character if my character had the slightest disagreement with his.
Yeah, I mean, I've experienced that, not in combat roleplay, but for sure. Bullying.
And the thing is, he actually made it so that way when we would join his roleplay, we would actually, and this was something that we didn't really, and something I didn't really think about when I was new to forum style roleplaying, was especially due to the fact that my earliest role playing was LARPing with my friends. Like, I absolutely loved that. But one thing I didn't realize back then was never give more control of your character than you would like to.
Yep.
Because what he would do to anybody that came into his clan is he would immediately put a piece of his character into that character. And if you ever disagreed with him in any sort of way, shape, or form, boom, he would activate that piece. Yeah, he would activate that piece and kill you instantly.
Yikes.
The minute that the creator of an RP writes God modding literally into their lore is the minute that I leave.
Yep, I'm not here for that. Not here for that at all.
I I hate to wrap this up, but we have reached the 2-hour mark, which means we
Okay.
need to start shutting things down.
Yeah, but that was a really, really good story, and I think that you touched on some stuff, Pickles, that we didn't really touch on, but it's still like a really common mistake. And like as you were telling that story, like I was thinking of like, oh yeah, I mean that's something that I could say too. There's absolutely times that I have stayed and engaged in a role play past when it was useful or healthy or any of those things for me, and I think that's something we always have to keep in mind. So thank you very, very much for coming on.
Yeah, not a problem. I'm happy that I was able to share that, even though I did kind of take up everybody's last 30 minutes. I apologize for that.
No, it was a good story. It was a good story. I liked it. I thought it was very useful. Yeah, good. It was a good story. Don't be sorry.
Yeah, and
All
if you
right.
ever want to share your voice again, let us know.
Yeah.
All right, will do.
All right, thanks for sharing.
Thank you.
Not a problem.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, so it is 2 hours, so we are going to start to say goodbye to you guys. So Landon, help us wrap up.
Can I very quickly, I know we can't spend a lot of time about it, but I really wanted to share this week's article with you.
Yes, tell me, what are we looking at this week?
So
And
it's just the little thing in the world that we need to know.
Okay.
And that's that in Indonesia, there are people dressing up as superheroes and teaching kids how to wash their hands, and it's so freaking cute.
What? Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. I am going to save the game, and I'm gonna open the article so that everyone can read along with us. I'm so glad we reached our goal in Viva Pinata today. So I feel like the game is like opened up now, and I'm gonna be able to show you guys so much more stuff. So let me save and get out of this, and I'll open up the article, and we'll go from there. Okay. Yes, that's fine. Let's quit to desktop. Okay. I'll give my computer a second to catch up. Because that game is so old, it's like in this different aspect ratio than like everything else. So like it takes it a second. Okay, here we go.
It's hard to think sometimes.
For computers too, right? For computers too. So superheroes from near and far join Indonesia's coronavirus battle. Oh, this is so cool.
Adorable. I think that this is the way to do it, right? Is to not make it as scary with kids. And I really wish we were seeing more of this, but it's literally 2 or 3 guys in Indonesia who are completely volunteer, put on their own Spider-Man and Superman costume, and are now like holding signs and asking people to wear masks, wash their hands, and stay alert.
Look at these guys. What heroes.
Yeah, it really is it's really nice. They hand out hand sanitizer and like little drums for kiddos, and they demonstrate how to wash hands properly, how to wear a mask, and all of that. And I think that when it comes to like kids, especially small kids, being able to see that kind of stuff is so much more impactful and so much cuter than sitting there and being like, you need to wear your mask, Jimmy.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's crazy. Like, I really wonder, how it must be really hard. It must be really hard for parents having to explain this to their kids.
Yeah.
So, this is just a really great way to do it. And I'm sure some kids are struggling at different levels, right? Some kids are probably like, oh, well, mom and dad are doing it, so I'm going to do it and it's fine. But I'm sure that like there's other kids that are like really bothered because, I mean, it is uncomfortable. Like it is uncomfortable. Yeah. Let's be honest. Like, yes, it's easy, but also, yes, it's hella uncomfortable to go out and wear a mask, especially if you have to do it for hours, if you're going out for a long time or whatever, which happens sometimes still. So this is great. I thank you so much for sharing this. I love it. We need some of this energy in the US right now. Like let's get this energy less like God's telling me I don't have to wear a mask energy, more of this energy. Right? Let's do that. Let's do that, guys.
All right. We should wrap it up. So okay. I just want to be sure to remind the people who are here in the chat, in the Twitch chat, to follow this Twitch channel. But if you're watching this on YouTube or listening to it as a podcast, please join us during our streams. We stream every Saturday from noon Eastern Standard Time to 2 Eastern
Thanks
Standard
for the
Time.
follow. Thanks, Eric, for the follow.
Oh, yay! And right now we're playing Viva Pinata. And we also take voices, as we did with Eric today. We love hearing from the community, and any questions or answers that you guys have and provide us, please reach out to me on Discord in order to get in line for that.
Yep, you're welcome in our chat, but if you want to come on for voice, if you want, it's either to talk about the topic, or if you have like a role play question that you feel like you want to go through, like vocally as opposed to typing it out in the Discord server, then this is a good vehicle for that as well. So yeah, follow the Twitch channel, subscribe to YouTube, and I don't know, wherever Landon's posting the podcast, do what you're supposed to do there. I don't know anything about podcasts. She's helping me with that.
Yeah, we don't actually, this is where I'm going to tell people, we don't officially have a name for the podcast.
Yeah.
So we'll gladly take in suggestions. Right now, it's the unnamed Karen and Landon project. So
it's Karen and Landon farts around for 2 hours.
Literally. So if you have any ideas or anything like that, reach out to us. We'll have more social media for that next week. But you can follow me on my personal Instagram at Landindin, Maine. And then please follow Karen on all of her social media.
Yes, so I'm on the places where I actually post content that's not just reposts, right? It's here on Twitch, it's on YouTube, and it's on Twitter. So on YouTube, it's Karen Terry, here where it's Karen Terry, and then on Twitter, it's also it's Karen Terry. So those are the 3 places you actually want to follow me. The rest are just reposts.
But you also want to follow her on Patreon. I'm going to continue shouting that out for you.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like, if you want to give me some money, like, the Patreon essentially has bought everything that you see. I mean, I've put it's mostly my money, but Patreon has absolutely contributed. So this microphone and the stand, the lights that you guys see behind me, the lights in front of me, pretty much everything except for the computer itself, Patreon has helped fund. So so that's what you're doing if you sign up for my Patreon. I put all of it, 100% of it, back into the production of my streams and my videos.
All right. I think that's it. So my advice is don't forget to be awesome.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys so much. We're going to go ahead and sign off and see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.